Once a generation, there might be a game or two that inspired developers to incorporate their ideas into future titles. Games and mechanical systems that influence the industry for better and for worse. What's much more rare, however, is a game that motivates its player base to do the same, creating worlds within worlds, their only limit being the boundaries of their imagination. Before Minecraft, designers were slow to give nearly complete control of their games over to those playing it, and the result of that game's release has been a cultural phenomenon that has literally changed the earth, one block at a time. Since he was young, Marcus Persson, or Notch as he's better known on the internet, wanted to develop video games. He'd worked with computers since childhood, tinkering with coding on a Commodore 128 that his father had bought for him. By 8 years old, he'd made his very first program, a basic text-adventure video game in the vein of Zork, where typing a correct series of keystrokes would progress you to the next screen. This passion for gaming would continue through Persson's schooling. He remembered telling a career counselor that he wanted to develop video games for a living. Humorously, she told him that such a career was unlikely at best. Despite this, Persson's passion for games would continue, and he became a developer for the company that would later become King.com, the creator of Candy Crush, sometime after graduating. However, he continued to develop his own ideas in his free time. Particularly, Persson was inspired by Dwarf Fortress and Dungeon Keeper to create a base-building title, developing a prototype known as Ruby Dung, which he hoped would be like Dwarf Fortress but more accessible for new players. This game never progressed past these early prototypes. While working on Ruby Dung and tossing around ideas for another zombie-inspired prototype, Persson came across a thread on the TIG Source game development forums discussing a title called Infiniminer. Persson was struck by the title's voxel-driven visual aesthetic, believing it would be perfect for small, independent developers because of its relative simplicity. It left much to the player's imagination while simultaneously being representative of what was mechanically in the game's world. The rudimentary art style also meant that it could potentially run on a wide variety of devices, hitting high frame rates or displaying millions of blocks even on weak or out-of-date systems. Regardless, Persson thought that the theming of Infiniminer left much to be desired, but also felt that its implementation in a fantasy game would work well. Persson combined the ideas of Ruby Dung, his unmade zombie-driven title, and Infiniminer into a single experimental idea, developing a prototype in his spare time at home that he titled Cave Game. However, creating Cave Game was a risk for Persson. Though his employers at King.com did not mind their developers creating their own games on their own time, they did not like how seriously Persson was taking this new experiment. Lars Markgren, co-founder of King.com, remembered, "We felt that we couldn't have someone working for us that at the same time was building his own gaming company." However, Persson was not dissuaded. He left his position at King.com in 2009 to pursue the development of Cave Game, taking a day job at online photo-sharing service Jalbum to pay his bills. Eventually, the experiment that Persson called Cave Game evolved into a much more realized project that he dubbed Minecraft, a voxel-driven, fantasy-themed sandbox building game where players could create anything that they wanted using the tools available in-engine. The very first version of Minecraft, later known simply as Minecraft Classic, was released to the public on the TIG Source forums on May 17, 2009. This first release of Minecraft was, for lack of a more descriptive term, unfinished. Persson didn't even consider it to be an alpha. However, something about Minecraft caught on with its players. The game had no meaningful tutorial, no directions or instructions. Instead, it offered the driver's seat to the player, letting them do what they wanted when they wanted. And this open-endedness sowed the seeds of a community desperate to decipher all of its hidden secrets. Players flocked to online message boards, sharing what they'd discovered and instructing new players on how to make items and equipment. It isn't difficult to see what players found so appealing. When you start up Minecraft, a new world is generated and the player is dropped into it with no direction or instruction. Instead, you're just given a set of tools and wordlessly told to go explore. Players can use materials in the world like wood, dirt, and stone to craft items and structures, placing blocks in specific configurations to create everything from swords, pickaxes, and armor in their inventory to castles, portals, and golems in the overworld. During the day, the only limit was the player's imagination, but when the sun sets, monsters roam the landscape, hoping to catch new and unprepared players off guard. If they weren't ready, if they hadn't built a primitive structure or equipped themselves with armor and weapons before nightfall, well, Many players found themselves waiting to respawn or huddled in shallow caves, dug from desperation. Every player has their own story recounting their first night spent in Minecraft's overworld, and each means as much, or perhaps even more to them, as the epics told in the narratives of big-budget AAA titles. That is perhaps Minecraft's greatest strength. Most of its appeal is built off the backs of the player's own mind. And nowhere was this more clearly obvious than in its creative mode, a version of the title that gave players virtually unlimited power over the game's tools and overworld. The possibilities of creation here are, quite literally, endless. Shortly after its launch, for lack of a better term, it reached the point where Minecraft was selling 400 copies a day for $6 each, and early on this caught the eye of many prominent publishers. Most notably, Valve Software invited Person to their offices for a job interview that they disguised as a tour. When he arrived, and after showing him around, they told him that he was a gifted programmer and offered him a position within the company. In what he described as one of the most difficult decisions of his life, Person turned them down, reasoning, "Somehow I felt that Minecraft was maybe my chance to create a Valve, rather than work at Valve." Despite the title having little to no advertising, Minecraft skyrocketed in popularity because of its natural virality, selling tens of thousands of copies and making Person a millionaire. However, Person quickly realized that he would not be able to keep up with the demands of the game on his own. He remembered calling Jacob Porser, his best friend from his development days at King.com, and just telling him, "Quit your job, we're starting a company." Person also recruited the business sensibilities of Carl Manna, his former boss at Jalbum, and the trio co-founded a new developer that they christened Mojang. Over time, the burgeoning company grew, bringing on more talent as their needs swelled. Jens Bergensen was hired as a programmer on Minecraft, eventually taking the mantle of lead designer when Person passed him the torch in 2011 so that he could focus on creating other games. Pixel artist Marcus Junkboy Toivonen reached out to Person early on, offering his services as an artist on the title, and he was brought on board as Mojang's art developer. Music and sound effects for Minecraft were composed by Daniel Rosenfeld, better known as C418. Rosenfeld's music for the title is nothing but serene, contributing to its calm and relaxing atmosphere. One of the biggest differences that set Minecraft apart from other games of its time was the fact that it was very much unfinished. Mojang did not release a version that they described as even alpha or beta until 2010, but this ended up being to the game's advantage. Players could contribute to the title as it was being made, suggesting changes or additions that they felt would be beneficial. And this was only further aided by the openness and reachability of Person and the other developers at Mojang, who were active on Twitter and online message boards like Reddit. After years in this unusual development cycle, Mojang officially released Minecraft version 1.0 on PC on November 18, 2011. Versions for Android and iOS were also released that same year, and since then Minecraft has found its way onto almost every major platform. As the game was updated, new features and ideas were added, including an entire Netherrealm, a pseudo-adventure mode, a hardcore survival mode, and a final boss-like encounter with a dragon. Minecraft was a hit before it was even released, generating hundreds of millions of dollars in profit for Person and the others at Mojang, and in the time since its release, Minecraft has cumulatively sold over 100 million copies, making it the second best-selling game of all time, after only Tetris, a game that has been ported to calculators. More important than these numbers, however, are the people that they represent. Minecraft's impact on the industry and the community that it's built are indescribable. Countless games have taken elements from Minecraft and incorporated them into their mechanics and aesthetics, and fan mods for the game are literally endless. The game has also seeped into all corners of multimedia with toys, books, merchandise, and spin-offs on store shelves, and a feature film on the way. As a result, fans of the franchise are now too numerous to count, and fan-made content featuring the game or its iconography are integral parts of platforms like YouTube, Twitch, and even Minecraft itself. An annual convention where fans can congregate known as Minecon began in 2010, and has since become the largest con for a single video game in the world, attracting 10,000 attendees in 2015. Minecraft has even been adopted as a tool for learning, with many schools using the game in programs designed to promote creativity, social interaction, and problem-solving in children. Mojang has since embraced this idea and has developed an entire version of the game around these educational purposes. Somewhat ironically, in 2014, the passion of this community would ultimately end up driving Person, Pursor, and Mana to make their biggest decision regarding Minecraft yet: to let it go. In mid-2014, Mojang began enforcing part of its end-user license agreement, barring their players from selling in-game items or effects to each other for real-world currency. Morally, the company's management felt that this was the right thing to do, but received significant backlash from the community. As a result, in jest, Person tweeted, "Anyone want to buy my share of Mojang so I can move on with my life? Getting hate for trying to do the right thing is not my gig." Within 30 minutes of Person sending this tweet, Mana received a call from a Microsoft executive asking if Person was serious, and when Mana asked Person, he wasn't entirely sure. Though originally a joke, the idea of letting someone else take over Mojang had taken root in Person's mind. Understandably, managing the company responsible for the most popular game of the modern age was stressful, and handing the keys to someone else might be the best for everyone involved. Several calls began pouring in from the likes of Electronic Arts and Activision Blizzard, but Microsoft was the company that interested Mojang's co-founders the most, and after a few meetings and phone calls, the trio formulated a deal with Microsoft. The company would acquire Mojang and the Minecraft IP, the three co-founders would depart from the company, and none of Mojang's employees would be laid off, with most of them receiving significant bonuses. By September of 2014, the deal was done, and Microsoft announced that they would be acquiring Mojang for $2.5 billion from Person, Pursor, and Mana. This was made official on November 6, 2014, with Microsoft taking control and the three departing to pursue other opportunities. That same day, Person wrote, "It's not about the money, it's about my sanity." And while the three torches that led Minecraft's way towards release may now have gone out, the title has been passed into more than capable hands. The game continues to be routinely updated, and the core of what made Minecraft so successful, the freedom that it provides to its players, continues to shine as brightly as the sun. There hasn't been a game in the past decade that has had more influence or touched as many lives as Minecraft has. There hasn't been a game that has single-handedly inspired more creativity and community, that has driven people to create rather than to destroy. And in the same way that the current generation of fresh-faced developers in the industry look to games like Super Mario and Doom as their inspirations, the next will look to Minecraft. And the way that that will shape the industry, the way that these future designers will hand freedom to the players, personally, that excites me like nothing else. Minecraft isn't the only game that turned into something world-changing despite its humble beginnings. Super Mario Bros. For the NES followed a similar path. It didn't even begin as a Mario game. If you want to know more about how our beloved kingdom-saving plumber found his way onto the Nintendo Entertainment System, click the annotation on screen to check out our breakdown of Super Mario Bros. And don't forget to subscribe to the Theorists for more retrospectives, theories, and cultural analyses in the future. We have so much coming your way. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm out.